The experts in benchmarking within a country vary. Sometimes the experts are consultancies, like Gulf League consultants, sometimes they're government bodies, sometimes they're national quality associations, and sometimes they're research institutions. This year, we welcomed 5 new members to the Global Benchmarking Network. The new members are Gulf League consultants. So can we give a round of applause to Gulf League consultants for being new members of the GBN? Another new member is Business Excellence Chile. George, can you stand up? So give a round of applause. Unfortunately, as we heard, Iran can't be with us today, but can we still give a round of applause and tell them the consultants coming out? We also had a representative from Saudi Arabia, from Day1 Consulting, but unfortunately they're not here this morning. We can give a round of applause, please. And finally, we had a new representative from United Arab Emirates, which was Abu Dhabi International Centre for Organisational Excellence. Again, they can't be here at the conference, but can we give a round of applause? If you see from the new membership, a lot of the new membership is from this region, and this is because organisations in this region are recognising the importance of benchmarking to actually improve Middle Eastern countries along the lines of the more Western organisations. So what does the Global Benchmarking Network do? We have international benchmarking projects. We have benchmarking roadshows where we go to countries around the world and educate people on benchmarking. The photograph here is from Canada. And we have the next roadshow in Saudi Arabia on the 29th to the 30th of March, where a number of benchmarking experts will be speaking on how to do benchmarking. We also have a benchmarking award, which is just being introduced for next year. This will be an award for those organisations which have truly integrated benchmarking into their organisation, where they're actively learning from other organisations. We trialled the award process in India last year, and we're ready to launch this new award in 2011. And we also have a website, so if you want to learn more about benchmarking, then take a look at the Global Benchmarking Network website, and that will also have a link to the Gulf League Consultants website as well, because they're the member for this region. And as you already know, the Global Benchmarking Network has an annual benchmarking conference. Last year it was held in Bahrain, and this is a photograph of myself and Ali Fadlani, who's here today. Ali Fadlani won the Best Paper Award at the last conference, so I recommend, again, you listen to his paper. I think he's delivering his paper tomorrow. And as we know, the conference is in Kuwait this time. And the reason why it's in Kuwait this time is mainly due to this man. Can you recognise him? Okay, round of applause. So what is benchmarking? Benchmarking to me is about learning from the experience of other organisations. This is why you do benchmarking. The whole purpose you do benchmarking is to improve the performance of your own organisation. And you do that from learning from other organisations. There are 2 main types of benchmarking. The first type is called informal benchmarking. This is the type of benchmarking that we all do, whether we're aware of it or not. It's comparing our knowledge with somebody else's knowledge. And if their knowledge is superior to ours on a particular subject matter, we take their knowledge and apply it to our own knowledge back. That's a form of informal benchmarking. So we all learn from experts, we all learn from our colleagues who are more experienced than us. We all learn through networking. A attending this conference is a great opportunity to learn from other organisations here. Make sure that the coffee breaks, you speak to the other delegates. Ask them, what is their organisation good at? Ask them, do they do Six Sigma? How do they apply it? Can you learn from them? Ask them about the HR practices. This is all a type of informal benchmarking. And you also learn, we all learn from reading books. But more and more, we're learning from using websites. So you can do Google searches on the internet for best practices to learn from the experience of other organisations. And there's even websites now designed to actually share information on what's happening in other organisations. So there are benchmarking websites available so you can compare your performance against other organisations and you can learn from the practices of other organisations. There are two types of formal benchmarking. So I've discussed informal benchmarking, now I'm going to discuss formal benchmarking. The first type of formal benchmarking is called performance benchmarking. And this is comparing your organisation's performance against another organisation's performance for some particular performance measure. So you might be comparing your organisation's performance against another for customer complaints. It might be for employee absenteeism. The reason why you compare your organisation's performance against another organisation's performance is to identify if there's a performance gap, to identify if another organisation is performing better than your organisation. If there is a gap, it means there's an opportunity for improvement. It means that your organisation can perform better than it currently is. So performance benchmarking is a useful tool for helping you to prioritise where you should focus your resources on in your organisation. Unfortunately, many organisations think that benchmarking is just performance benchmarking. They think that benchmarking is just about comparison. Whilst performance benchmarking is important, what you need to recognise is that it does not provide solutions. It does not tell you how to close the gap. It says that there is a gap, but it does not tell you how to close the gap. This is why best practice benchmarking is so important. Because best practice benchmarking includes a comparison, but it also includes trying to learn from the better organisation. So best practice benchmarking has a whole process whereby you're trying to learn from the better performers and implement that new understanding of how to improve your processes. The thing to consider here is the word benchmarking. If we take the word benchmark, what we're trying to do there is just compare your organisation against a benchmark, against an organisation with outstanding performance. So a benchmark on its own is just a comparison. But when you add the ing to the end of benchmark, it means you're doing something in addition to the benchmark. You're also going to learn from that organisation, which is a high achiever. So make sure you're doing benchmarking, learning from experience of other organisations. There are different methodologies you can use for best practice benchmarking. The methodology shown here is a trade best practice benchmarking methodology which is used in Kuwait through Gulf Lead Consultants. It's a 5-stage methodology. If we look at the Rand Xerox methodology, it's a 10-step methodology, but it's similar in concept. So just to ensure that you understand the difference between performance benchmarking and best practice benchmarking, there's a couple of definitions here. So, performance benchmarking is a comparison of performance data that has been obtained from studying similar processes or activities. It is useful for identifying strengths and opportunities for improvement. It is used for comparing financial and non-financial performance. And there's some examples there of financial measures you can use and benchmarking, it starts off exactly the same as the definition for performance benchmarking. So best practice benchmarking is a comparison of performance data that has been obtained from studying similar processes or activities. But then we add to that, it's also about identifying, adapting and implementing the practices that produce the best performance results. And this is where you get breakthrough improvements in performance. You're learning about new ways of doing things that have been successful in other organisations. I'll just provide a brief overview of the trade best practice benchmarking methodology. It consists of 5 stages. The first stage is developing terms of reference for the project you're going to undertake. So this is all about planning the project. So you need to identify, which area in your organisation you want to improve. If, for instance, you've identified that your employees are not particularly motivated, you might undertake a project to identify the best practices in employee motivation. You might want to learn what other organisations are doing to motivate their employees. So in terms of reference, we'll be saying that what we want to do is identify best practices in employee motivation. We want to form a team who's going to investigate this area and improve how we currently motivate our employees. So you're developing a project plan. The next stage is a research stage. And this is about researching how your organisation currently performs in this area and what activities your organisation currently does or what processes are already in place for that particular area that you're focusing on. So it's trying to identify the current state, the current situation. So if your project is to identify best practices in employee motivation, then you want to look at what training you currently provide to employees. You want to look at how your leaders currently communicate to employees. You want to look at what reward and recognition system you have in place. But you also want to look at how we currently perform in that area. So you want to look at your employee absenteeism levels. You'd want to look at your employee turnover levels. You'd want to look at your employee satisfaction survey results if you've undertaken a satisfaction survey. So all this will help you to understand how you currently perform in employee motivation. And then you can decide whether you need to learn from other organisations, because now you understand the extent of the problem, the extent of the issues. And so the next stage is the act stage. This is where you act and go and learn from other organisations which have superior performance in terms of employee motivation. So in this stage, you'd be trying to identify which organisations are performing better. It might be they've won a human resource award in Kuwait. That might be a good indication that they have higher levels of employee motivation. It might be that through your knowledge of your customers and suppliers, you know some of your customers and suppliers have highly motivated workforces. So maybe you want to contact your customers and suppliers and say, what are you doing differently? How come your employees are so motivated? So this whole stage is about identifying who to learn from and then going to learn from them. There are different ways to learn from other organisations. One way is to go and visit them. Another way would be to send them a survey and to ask them to complete a survey so you understand more about their practices and level of performance. It might be you just give a phone call to a manager there and talk to them about their organisation. It might be there's been some written articles, written case studies on how the organisation has achieved excellence in employee motivation. So there's a whole array of different methods you can try and learn from other organisations. So that phase is all about learning. And when you learn about these better practices, you then need to deploy them. So the next stage is all about deployment.